Hello everyone, I am Inverse, and I am back finally with the second installment in my replay review marathon. This is a full month after my first installment and a full 3 weeks and 5 days or so behind schedule. School got in the way, other such things, but that really doesn't matter at this point. I will be posting the rest of the games, the next 5 games in the replay review marathon daily over the next 5 days. This game today, and then a game every day for the next 5 days. And hopefully that'll force me to stick to a schedule and actually put some regular content out. Furthermore, I will be trying to post at least a cast or 2 every week beyond this replay review. Not just replay reviews, but also higher level games casted from my perspective. Furthermore, I am streaming pretty much every day, twitch.tv/InverseTV. There'll be a link down in the bottom right of your screen right there. I also do have a Twitter account that if people start following me, I will be updating with various random factoids and info on when I'm streaming and when I'll be posting videos and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So go check that out if you so desire. Of course, subscribe to me on YouTube if you like. And without further ado, we will get on with this game. We have down here in the bottom the trusty hero for today's game, Soulmessiah. He will be playing as the Americans on South Angoville. His opponent, right down here, Pex1, a level 13 Wehrmacht player. He will be up here in the north. As you can see, the fog of war is on. The reason for this is I am doing a replay review here. I'm trying to help out my mentor, Soulmessiah, try to get him a bit of experience and just let him know some of the things that I would have done differently, some of the things I would have changed in his gameplay. Just try to help him out, give him some tips. Hopefully that'll help you guys out as well. Anyways, on to the game. Not really anything special to be talked about too early right here. Standard barracks placement right about here. First rifle squad coming out, 2 engineers on the field. Nothing too special as we bring up the tactical map. Just going to talk a little bit about Angoville. In general, the American player tends to take this right hand side. The Wehrmacht player tends to focus on the left hand side. The reason being, if you look over here on the right hand side, we see a lot of hedges, a lot of buildings, a lot of shot blocking. Shot blocking is the enemy of the Wehrmacht faction and the friend of the American faction. Always something to keep in mind. You really want to be looking for shot blocking as an American player when you're looking for flanking res, because that really limits the usefulness of MGs. Furthermore, MGs in buildings, not what they once were. If you were around pre 2.4, or actually I think it was 2.5, something like that they actually changed it, but might have been 2.4, so 2.301 and anything before that, you will remember MGs shot instantly out of windows and could never change windows as long as there was a target that they were shooting at in their view. In 2.4 they changed that, of course, so that MGs can change windows, but there's a little bit of a delay before they start shooting. This really hurts the effectiveness of MGs. Reason being, they're very easy to flank now because they have that 1 or 2 extra seconds where they can't be shooting. Now we do see an early engagement here. Soulmessiah trying to close a bit of distance. Probably not a bad idea right here. We do have a Volks against a rifle, a Pioneer heading to the right hand side, and an Engineer down here capping this fuel point. And Wehrmacht player going back, taking a lot of damage. This is very good for Soulmessiah. You do see his rifle squad with very little damage taken. The Volk squad that we did see there for just a second with a significant deal more damage taken than the rifle squad. This is very important early game. You really want to be paying attention not just to losing squad members, but to losing health. Healing is a premium early game. It costs fuel for Americans. It costs munitions for Wehrmacht. It's very important to be wary of when you're taking damage, and not just manpower damage but health damage. We do see an MG right here. Not a bad decision by Soulmessiah charging it right here. We do know the 1 Volks is over here probably capping this point, and the rifle squad is going to come around. However, one thing you do have to keep in mind is this really short reinforced distance. He's probably going to want to retreat right here. Does not want to be running through red cover getting shot at by these Volks. He is going to probably jump in this building right here. Meanwhile, on the left hand side, the Pioneers were forced to retreat, and Soulmessiah is going to be able to decap that point most likely. Furthermore, we do see a pretty good pretty good map control on the right hand side by Soulmessiah. If we open up the tactical map for a second right here, we do see 3 rifle squads moving in here trying to cap this point. Don't really think this is a good idea. This is part of this damage and the premium damage has in the early game. I'm just going to pause the game right here. What Soulmessiah is trying to do right here is, of course, cap this VP. He did actually manage to kill a Volks member in this house, which is kind of funny, but he's taking a decent amount of damage. And, of course, healing very, very difficult for Americans to get in the early game. Just something to keep in mind. Meanwhile, we have the engineers on the left-hand side decapping this point. They're going to want to stop capping it. Probably going to want to move back here and cap this munitions point. They're just taking a bit too much damage. However, good rifle support by Soulmessiah. We do have to take into account the fact that there's probably an MG right over in this area. We knew it was there a little bit earlier. I wasn't sure if it forced a retreat, but most likely I'm going to be assuming there is an MG over here. So Soulmessiah going to have to be a little bit careful. Good that he's not trying to move in and cut off this point. It would only cut off this munitions point, which munitions very, very important for Wehrmacht early game. However, not really worth being forced to retreat. Now at this point, we have 4 rifles on the field, 4 minutes 30 seconds into the game, and it is time for Soulmessiah to be making a tech choice. If I were him, I would be popping down bars right now. He's got the 200 manpower and he's got more than the 60 fuel, and given his map control, he really doesn't have to be worried about any sort of tier 3 pressure. Furthermore, getting bars early game really sets you up well against tier 2, and in a situation such as this, your opponent is pretty much going to be forced into tier 2. Now what we see right here is no focus fire. I'm just going to pause right here, and we see these 2 squads both with low health. What you want to be doing as an American player, and as any player really early game, is to take both of these squads and actually right click. Don't just have them attack, don't just put them in cover like that and just have them be shooting, because they'll shoot equally at all of the squad members on the screen right here. What you want to be doing, focus fire one of the squads, get it out of the way, because one squad is a lot easier to deal with than 2 squads. You want to force one squad to retreat as soon as possible. Meanwhile, we saw this engineer retreat. Gonna assume he's gonna throw up a supply yard. Don't really like that decision personally. I would think a bar tech would be a far better choice in this situation. Volks squads, very, very bad against bars. No fuel for the Wehrmacht player. There's literally 0 chance of a tier 3 rush. You could go bars. We're going to pause right now and see the supply yard going up right here. Soulmessiah could go bars and then could tech to an M8 immediately afterwards, and he would still probably... Actually, he probably wouldn't beat out the pack, but he definitely would beat out a Puma if the Wehrmacht player were trying to go for Pumas, which I highly doubt he would be doing at this stage in the game, given how Soulmessiah has the +16 on the left, the +16 on the right, and is probably going to keep them. We have this mine right here, going to do a good job helping against that. This squad going to have to retreat very, very soon as we resume this game. Going to want to retreat. A little bit late. Probably going to get out. No, definitely not going to get out. Definitely a blunder right there. However, very, very far ahead is Soulmessiah in terms of map control. He really wants to rebuild that squad right away. Considering he does have 400 manpower, he hasn't really been forced to reinforce too much throughout this game. So really going to want to get another rifle squad up. Probably not, though, by the looks of things. I'm curious to see if Soulmessiah is going to be going for the tank depot tech or just straight to a fast M8. Be pretty telling. He can almost afford the tank depot if he throws the motor pool down right away. Of course, that will be a pretty big tell. Looking like he's not going to, though, so I'm a little worried. Thinking we're gonna see a fast Sherman, and I personally am just gonna pause and speak about the fast Sherman for a little bit right now. It's a very high risk, high reward type of playstyle. I like it on maps like Stursdorf when you start from the north, because you have all that fuel up on the right hand side. Angoville, on the other hand, far more difficult to secure both fuel points. As you saw, good early game play gave Soulmessiah both fuel points. However, a strong push with an MG and a couple of Volk squads has allowed the Wehrmacht player to recap the right hand side of the map for the most part. And this is really going to reduce Soulmessiah's fuel income, as we see right here. Not even at the 90 fuel required for the tank depot, and only at 26 fuel income. At that rate, it would take almost 4 minutes in order to get the required fuel for a Sherman. 4 minutes is a long time in Company of Heroes. your opponent is almost certainly going to have some sort of counter for that Sherman rather by the time it comes out, unless he's doing something extremely risky and extremely stupid. So now we do see Soulmessiah moving out onto the right hand side. Still hasn't rebuilt that fourth rifle squad. Rifle squad, not Pio squad. He hasn't rebuilt that, and I don't know how I feel about that. It's really limiting his effectiveness. We see this MG going to tear through these rifle squads. Didn't really do a very good job of spreading them out, and he's going to want to retreat instantly. These squads over here are going to tear him completely apart. Might actually focus down on that squad, but yes, he is going to get the MG, which is very good. However, he did lose a whole lot. He lost a lot of health primarily on that one rifle squad. Meanwhile, up here, kind of lost focus on this one rifle squad, taking a lot of damage, going to want to retreat most likely. There's really no way he's going to be able to do anything over here. He's just going to take damage, going to want to retreat sooner rather than later. We do see a med bunker, which isn't really indicative of anything. A med bunker is standard in most Wehrmacht strats, and we do see a motor pool. So interesting late tech choice. He could have gotten this motor pool up a whole heck of a lot earlier, and he could be building an M8 right now. Could have built an M8 probably a good deal of time ago, as well as have almost enough manpower for that fourth rifle squad. Just small blunders like this really add up throughout the course of a game. We do see trying to cut off right here, but you do have to keep into account the fact that this one strat point right here connecting all of this, so that cutoff really didn't do anything at that time. We have a lot of low health squads as well. That low health 4-man squad, a low health 6-man squad right there, a very low health 6-man squad right here. And finally getting the M8 out. Idle engineer right here could be doing some. And still no fourth rifle squad. 4 rifle squads absolutely essential mid-game, especially against a infantry heavy Wehrmacht composition. You want rifle squads out on the field for as long as possible, gaining as much veterancy experience as possible before Wehrmacht units get their veterancy. We do see a little bit of harass on the left hand side. Not a bad idea by the Wehrmacht player. He really wants to be focusing on the left hand side over the right hand side in most cases. We don't have a company selected for Soulmessiah just yet. Getting those skirts followed by the upgun on the M8 right away, not too bad. However, we do see this big 400 manpower number right here. That really needs to be invested into something sooner rather than later. I would really suggest a 4th rifle squad and bars. We'd have a lot of fuel, more than enough fuel for bars, especially considering he went for an M8 instead of the Sherman. So another rifle squad and some bars. Pretty much the ideal composition right now. Not really sure what's going on here. There we go. Gets him out. There's most likely a pack somewhere around here. Just a little tip, because I do know a lot of people know this, but a lot of people don't. It's a tip I use a lot on my stream. If you mouse around in the fog of war and you come across green cover where there shouldn't be green cover, see, I can't find any right now. But, ooh, wait a minute. No, maybe not. God, that would have been awesome. If you mouse around for green cover in places where there shouldn't be green cover, like say there was green cover right here, and I mouse over it and it's green cover, there's a pack right there. And that's a pretty good indicator of where your opponent's AT is. It's a very useful thing to know, especially when you are using fragile units like the M8. Just something to keep in mind. Now this engineer is probably going to die. That's kind of annoying because it's a flamer. He's going to want to retreat now. But I don't think he's paying attention. He's double capping over here, and these squads have such low health. He needs a triage center. Look at this, 600 manpower right now. I'm going to pause the game right here again. And focusing a lot on the early game, because something Soulmessiah did mention in his post along with this replay was the fact that he felt like he played very dominantly in the early game, yet had trouble transitioning into a solid mid and then subsequently a solid late game off of that. And stuff like this, stuff like these small little things, floating this manpower, not getting this 4th rifle, not really teching after the M8 despite all of this fuel and all of this manpower. These little things really add up into the mid game to make your late game far more difficult. If Soulmessiah gets his bars a minute earlier, he could have gotten this probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes ago, He would have bars on all of his rifles. That means he's killing more stuff right now. That means it's more difficult for the Wehrmacht player to be reinforcing and building new units because he has to waste manpower on reinforcements. It also means the American player is gaining a lot more veterancy because he's killing a lot more stuff, and that subsequently leads to more map control and a stronger late game as a result of that. However, with the 600 manpower and 90 fuel in the bank, not really much going on there. Of course, a weapon support center, not a bad idea at this time either. However, we don't even see a pack yet, probably on this left-hand side here. A little bold with this M8, hasn't checked right here for mines. There very well could be a mine over there. Another engineer dies. And good job putting this M8 right near the house. That's what you want to do. However, we do have an idle squad on the left-hand side. Going to want to be doing something. And an engineer squad down here. He is getting bars. I would have liked to see the 4th rifle squad before bars. We see all this manpower. And, excuse me, bars aren't really that worth it on only 3 rifle squads. To be completely honest, you really want 4 to maximize their effect. He could also be getting a triage center. Going to want to get as much as possible. You really want to take advantage of situations where you have all this manpower, like in a game such as this. It is not very often where you really find yourself floating this much and still have the map control that Soulmessiah has. He still has very, very good map control. If we open up the tactical map, it's kind of an unconventional Angoville split horizontally instead of vertically down this road right here, as we usually see with one player on the left hand side, one player on the right hand side. Instead we have top and bottom, which is kind of interesting, and it means Soulmessiah has a whole lot of fuel but isn't really doing much with it. We do see the triage center finally coming up. I would love to see the level 1 supply art upgrade. My philosophy on supply art upgrades is get them as early and as often as you can while remaining safe against everything else. At this point, I'd be a little wary of some kind of tier 3 play. There has been an M8 on the field for a considerable period of time, and we have not seen either a Gren or a pack. That speaks very, very strongly to some sort of tier 3 play, in my opinion. And very, very good getting this AT gun out right as I say that. Very, very smart idea for Soulmessiah and that 4th rifle squad finally on the field. A little bit late though, 11:45. However, better late than never, of course. A little bit of a push on the left hand side. Personally, we do see Soulmessiah splitting up a little bit. I'd like to see Soulmessiah go for a concerted push on one side of the map, really cap all the way up to his opponent's base if possible. We see a lot of Wehrmacht forces on the left hand side. Soulmessiah really going to want to react and engage this. This is a very favorable situation for him if he can get all of his rifle squads, his engineers, and his M8 into the fight. These Volks have no veterancy. They're Volks. There's 3 of them, and that is a lot of manpower damage that can be had with bars and a very, very good flank with an M8 and stuff like that. We have this MG back over here trying to wire up. I don't really like this wire. Wire as an American, I'm just going to pause the game. A lot of stuff going on. Stuff on the right hand side. I'm just going to talk about this wire for a second. The wire as an American player, wiring as an American player for that matter, you have to do it really, really carefully. As you see right here, I don't really like this because sure, it's a little bit more difficult for the Wehrmacht player to cut you off, but how do you flank this MG? You can come from here. You might be able to come from here, but you're going to have to be worried about stuff over here. You can come from here, but the Wehrmacht player has all of this, and that's a very, very strong position. We see a big choke here and a big choke here. These are 2 sections of the map that are very, very easy to control. Wiring off this area means wiring off one more approach, and I don't really like that. You really, really want to be able to flank as much as possible and not really worry too much about holding territory. You want to be fluid rather than static as an American player. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, just going to see how this engagement unfolds. Something was shot. That was really, really strange. Meanwhile, we do have an MG on the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side, rather. Not really sure what this rifle squad's going to do. Going to do a lot of damage to that one squad. And off-map somewhere. Where's the off-map? Off-map. 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 Maybe not wasted. Oh, and there is a pack, so gonna pause the game right here. 13 minutes into the game, you see the first indication of tier 2 tech. You see a pack. When I look at this as an American player, I go, yay, my opponent's not very good. But in this case, it's kind of a weird timing. We don't see any Grens. We see one pack. Leads me to believe there might be a second pack. I don't know. Also leads me to believe that there will be some sort of tech. I really don't want to think that in a game like this there's no tech. And ouch. That was quite the... Oh, that's unfortunate. Run away, please run away. Please don't die, please don't die. You two, run. Retreat, please retreat. And you check your grenades, okay? Gonna pause and talk about that for a little bit. Sorry about the pauses, guys, by the way. Let me know if you like the pauses or if you'd like me to just keep the game going on in the background. I personally feel like pausing the game just gives me a little bit of a better opportunity to discuss kind of the specifics and stuff like that. Just going to talk about the grenade choice. Definitely not a bad idea. However, with grenades, you really need to be proactive with shooting medics, and Soulmessiah not really doing that. We see the one medic right here and another medic somewhere probably. There's going to be a free grenade coming out of here very, very shortly if he does not shoot those medics. It is more important in most situations to shoot the medics before your opponent's infantry than the other way around. Because if you are forced to retreat and you haven't shot the medics, that's a lot of free stuff for your opponent. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, Wehrmacht player has lost a lot, but is still sticking in there. We have a decent unit composition for the American player, and he did shoot that medic. Very good. Kudos to you, sir. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you did see that pack, and right here, you see the green cover. You can't see it. It is, however, decrewed, so that's cool. Shoot that medic. Maybe not with the M8. Laying a mine around here is never a bad idea. However, yeah, you are shooting the medic. Woo! Go Soulmessiah! He can't, of course, afford the mine over there. Gonna want to reinforce as soon as possible. Reinforce. No, maybe. I wonder what he's spending his money on. I am quite confused. I guess he's reinforcing. Yay, okay. Wow, I am slow. So yeah, reinforce as soon as possible, of course. There's going to be mass fest over here. Going to want to retreat out of that. A little bit of slow, really slow reaction time right here on that M8. You should never lose an M8 to a Volk squad. That's just kind of bad control on Soulmessiah's part right there. We do have a lot of manpower and no further tech option coming from Soulmessiah. He does not want to be making another M8. No, cancel that. When you see tier 2, there's zero reason in remaking your M8. Zero. Like, absolutely no point to it. Tier 2 is the absolute hardest counter to the M8 that Wehrmacht has, short of just rolling you with Panthers, which is not very viable and slightly uneconomical. But tier 2 counters M8 extremely hard. What Soulmessiah needed to do right there, instead of getting the second M8, he needed to throw down a weapon support center, get a sniper, get his first supplier upgrade. He has more than enough manpower, more than enough fuel for that. Good job recrewing this pack. But he really needs that first supplier upgrade. He needs a weapon support center. He needs things that counter tier 2. He doesn't need things that tier 2 counters, which in this case is the M8. Another just kind of small tip, we have this idle AT gun on the right hand side. It could be doing something. If you hit attack move and then click on a building, it will shoot that building until a unit either enters it or leaves it. This is good in one sense to know when your opponent enters or leaves the building, because your AT gun will stop shooting at the building. But furthermore, this building is never going to help Soulmessiah. In this current situation, this building is only there to act as a little bit of extra cover for the MG that the Wehrmacht player is putting inside of it. And it would really be better to kill it as opposed to having a free place for the MG to just sit around. So if you're not doing anything with this AT gun, attack move, shoot that building, kill the building. You might even kill the MG if you're lucky. However, we do have the other M8 on the field. Hasn't gotten any upgrades yet. Gonna want to retreat. Actually, yeah, gonna want to retreat sooner rather than later with these squads. Really taking more damage than he's given at this point. Is retreating. Kind of blob capping right here. Gonna want to lay mines. One thing you can always stand to improve on, this mine actually has not gone off still after all this time. But yeah, being proactive with your mine placement is always something you can improve on as an American player and as a Wehrmacht player. As a player in general, you really want to be proactive with your mines. And there we go. Didn't even need tier 2 because a little bit of lapse in focus. If you're going to use an M8, you really need to pay attention to it. Just kind of a mechanical, micro-oriented thing to improve on. Just focusing on controlling your units while at the same time getting your reinforcements going back home, building the buildings you need, microing on your other front, defending against, say, this pioneer harass. Just small sort of multitasking micro things like that, always good to improve on. Infantry company, of course, selected, never a bad idea. Actually, probably the best idea you could ever go with as an American player against a Wehrmacht player. Going to want to back this AT gun up ASAP. A little bit of a push by the Wehrmacht player on the right hand side, and this AT gun not doing anything. Really should actually have this AT gun further back into his base just to defend, and in order to make sure it does not get taken out by, say, this grenadier right here throwing a grenade. And not really there in time to see it. Actually didn't do much of anything, in fact. Second pack, or second AT gun, the pack in this case, on the right hand side. Not really sure what it's doing over there. Just gonna come chill with his pal, I guess. I don't know. And we have tank depot. This is the second tech choice I really don't agree with. I really don't like the tank depot in this sense. You have been cut off from the left hand side fuel and the right hand side fuel, and you have a decent amount of fuel right now. You are going to be able to get at least one Sherman out, so that's okay. You have a Sherman. But think about what your opponent has and what your opponent counters. And it is everything that drives around on wheels. He has packs, he has Shreks on his Grens. He has all sorts of things that really like to kill tanks, but don't really like to kill infantry that much. And definitely don't really like to kill snipers, especially when your opponent, like, he really doesn't have a good answer to snipers. He has a counter snipe, which is on and off, and excuse me, if you mine up and if you do a good job supporting your sniper with riflemen, a bike and a sniper are probably not going to get close enough to do any sort of damage without dying first or afterwards, and that's a pretty big risk for your opponent to take. Just something to keep in mind. Really don't like this tank depot. Would really prefer a weapon support center and a sniper instead. Don't really know what these AT guns are doing right here. He's gonna run him away. Okay, a little bit late, however. Late reaction time right there. Kinda, you know, whatever. Didn't hurt him here, so that's fine. So we do see kind of what Soulmessiah was talking about with the being pretty successful in the early game. He had a lot of fuel. He had both sides of the map, and then kind of falling apart going into the mid game. A little bit of this is the tech choices, of course, getting this tank depot, getting the second M8, not getting a weapon support center, getting this fourth rifle a little bit too late, getting his bars a little bit too late, and not getting this first supply yard upgrade. All of those are essential to a solid American mid game. You want that supply yard or that supply yard upgrade rather, for more manpower, of course, and also for all that veterancy. You want the weapon support center for the snipers to counter tier 2. You always want a weapon support center against tier 2. That is pretty much a given. If you can afford it, you want the weapon support center. You never want to rebuild an M8 when you lose it against any sort of tier 2. Just do not do it. Force yourself. Even if you think you can find an opening, you can do a little bit of damage, maybe force an MG to retreat, kill it, something like that. Try not to. Really try to play without the M8 once the tier 2 is on the field. You're more often than not going to lose it, going to do something, and it's really not going to be beneficial for you. Just a small micro note right here. We saw this one rifle squad hit a mine and not lose any men, but drop to lower than half health. If I were in this situation, I would instantly retreat this rifle squad and heal them up at the triage center. You're probably going to save yourself almost 100 manpower in reinforcement costs by doing that. This squad's going to lose men so quickly, it's absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, we see Tier 3 tech. This should not be a problem for Soulmessiah. Casualties being reported. What did he lose? Ooh, he lost a rifle squad. I did not even notice that. So, just another one of those kind of unit preservation, sloppiness kind of things. AT guns are going to really want to be moved up onto the left-hand side. Sorry guys, having a bit of a cough lately. AT guns really going to want to be moved up to this left-hand side of the map. Not really doing any good over here. Finally going to move them right now. A little bit late. However, very, very good map control now for the Wehrmacht player. Kind of a difficult situation for the American player. Just going to speed things up a little bit. Not much going on. Enough manpower for and fuel for that matter for okay. How to approach this? All right. So I'm just going to go over some basic RTS theory. This doesn't really pertain too much to anything Company of Heroes specific. It's just kind of the basics of any RTS that relies on resource income and spending resources and timings and stuff like that, of which Company of Heroes definitely fits the bill. You built this tank depot. So right here you invested 350 manpower, 90 fuel, and whatever time it took you to build this tank depot. And in that time, you can't do anything with that manpower, that fuel, and that time. It is invested in the tank depot, and the tank depot does not do anything. It's a building. It stands there. It can let you build stuff that does stuff that can hurt your opponent, but the building itself does absolutely nothing. It is 350 manpower, 90 fuel for the ability to build stuff out of it. When you build that building, please have it in your mind that you're going to build something out of it. The biggest waste you could ever do is to build a building and then never use it. That's why I personally, as a player, am extremely frustrated if I say build my motor pool, and then all of a sudden the motor pool finishes and I see a Gren walk out, because I'm thinking to myself, great, I just wasted 240 manpower and 45 fuel super early in the game, and I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to get any advantage out of that, because I'm not going to build anything out of it, because he already has the counter to that tech choice. In this case, Soulmessiah built the tank depot and then neglected to build anything from it, and is now building a howitzer, which, after seeing tier 3 tech, is a peculiar decision to make, to say the least. If I were him, I would have gotten a Sherman. I would have gotten the sticky bomb upgrade as soon as possible. And with those two upgrades, you can do pretty well against any sort of tier 3, especially considering Soulmessiah has the 2 AT guns. He has the pack and the AT gun in his possession right now. He has plenty of AT. He needs something to help him with the infantry, and I really don't think against a player who's gone tier 3, the howitzer is the best idea. And if Soulmessiah were dead set on that howitzer this early, not really early, 20 minutes in, but at this point in the game rather, he really should have gotten it before the tank depot. Like, he really could have just mixed these two constructions up, like built this before this, and I would have been perfectly happy with that, because you're getting the thing that actually does something earlier. You're getting the howitzer, and you get an extra barrage or two by building that a little bit earlier, and that makes a pretty big difference. The howitzer, you get, like, the earlier you build it, the better, because the earlier you build it, the longer you have to do damage with it. So yeah, that's my kind of rant on tech buildings. Yay! Don't build stuff you're not going to use. Woo! Anyways, continuing on, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Down to 3 rifles again. Probably going to want to rebuild that, but kind of strapped for manpower at this point. Getting this howitzer, which, you know, could be a good idea, could be a bad idea. I personally think it's a bad idea, and that is why you instantly retreat low health squads like that, because see, he hit another mine and he lost 4 men. That is over 100 manpower right there in reinforcement cost. Meanwhile, if he had just simply instantly retreated right there, he would have kept this point a little bit slower, but he probably would have only lost a man or two from that one grenade, or from that one mine, if he walked over it at a different point in the game. Meanwhile, we have the howitzer barraging and not really doing anything. We do have Vet 2 infantry as well as tier 3, so a lot of manpower, or a lot of fuel income rather, for the Wehrmacht player at this stage in the game. Not too bad, however, a decent amount of veterancy on the rifle squads. However, there are only 3 of them, so that's a slight problem. Gonna want to move these AT guns up, and not really doing that. Just gonna pause and mention once again kind of the synergy of the units in the American army. You really need to be attacking with all of your units at once if you're really trying to make a push. You see, looking at the minimap right now, we have a rifle squad in the base. We have engineer squad not really in the battle. We have excuse me, we have a rifle squad on the left hand side here with low health that I would probably retreat, seeing as it's below half health right there with still 6 men. And we have the AT guns still in the base. These AT guns really need to be moving up and supporting the push on the left hand side. Even if it doesn't kill anything, it'll force your opponent to micro, it'll force your opponent to move back. And just kind of a common theme throughout this game being the lack of orchestrated, concentrated pressure being put on by Soulmessiah in this game. Really wants to just kind of like actually use all of his units at once, because if you use a few of your units at a time and you fight your opponent like that, and your opponent uses all of his units at once against those smaller groups of your units, you're going to lose every single time, and you're not even going to lose closely. Like, you deal a lot of damage, but you still have to retreat because he just had too much. You are going to lose a whole heck of a lot of stuff because he is going to vastly outnumber you, vastly overwhelm you in terms of firepower, and just deal damage so quickly to your small number of units that you're just not going to be able to do anything at all. Meanwhile, we do see Rangers on the field getting that Tommy gun upgrade right away. Don't really know. I don't really like this Ranger purchase, and the reason I don't like it is because we haven't gotten a supplier to upgrade yet. We see 220 manpower income right now, and not much stuff on the field. Lost that 1 rifle squad, of course. We are down to 3 rifles, unable to reproduce them because of this extremely low manpower income. And now that there are now that there is Vet 3 infantry on the field, these Rangers not really going to do that much, to be completely honest. Artillery barrage going off on the med bunker. I really don't like this personally. The med bunker can really be negated by shooting medics all by itself. You don't need to howitzer a med bunker unless you're sure you're going to kill it. Like, say it's at really low health and there's some squads around it. In that case, yeah, throw a howitzer barrage on that med bunker. You might do a bit of damage. In this case, however, just shooting it into the fog of war at the med bunker. Excuse me, something died. What died? Ooh, another rifle squad died. Alright, gonna pause it right now. This game's pretty much getting to an end. There is a decent amount of time left on the replay, but the rest of it I'm probably gonna fast forward a little bit, since a lot of the main blunders I've kind of gone over them and kind of explained why I think they're kind of an issue, and I really feel like there's not really too much to say further about this game. I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, the howitzer barrage on this stuff, med bunkers. Sorry guys, it's late, forgive me. Howitzers on med bunkers, please don't do it. A far better option would be to poke with your infantry, see where his MGs are, see where his his Volk squads and his grenadiers are really congregated, and then barrage right there. You might get a lucky shot, kill a bunch of stuff, you'll force an MG to retreat or reposition, you'll force your opponent to micro, and that puts pressure on your opponent, and you can benefit from that pressure. Instead of just throwing it on the med bunker, now you gotta wait for the cooldown to expire in order to do something completely different, and you've given your opponent a bit of time to freely kind of move about the map. He doesn't have to worry about microing around Howie shots because he knows it's on cooldown because you wasted it on his med bunker, and he's pretty happy about that because he can just repair this fairly easily and at pretty much no cost. Very low cost to him in terms of manpower. So another rifle squad has been constructed, not very much on the field, however, for our American hero. Just gonna see a grenade go in and almost kill a MG before being forced to retreat. We see, as I said, the Pioneers repairing. Kind of a weird playstyle by this Wehrmacht player, getting a Stug against no tanks and then going for vet on his infantry and his Pios. It's kind of strange. But yeah, at this point I really see little opportunity for Soulmessiah to come back into this game. We have a Nebel barrage coming down, and I'm just gonna kind of speed through the rest of this game. Don't really see too much of what can be commented on. A lot of this had to do with a lot of the decision making early in the game. The teching, getting this tank depot. Still hasn't built anything out of the tank depot, even though he could right now. He's going to have to reinforce all these squads instead. Not really doing much of anything with this howitzer. Doesn't really have any sort of line of sight on anything while he's shooting it, which is something you really need for a howitzer. You need to at least know where you are shooting with a howitzer. Stuff like that. And at this point, the Wehrmacht player just has too much stuff, to be completely honest. He's got the left-hand side locked down, got the right-hand side locked down for the most part. And no weapon support center from our American player, Soulmessiah. Going to make it really difficult to do very much of anything against this Wehrmacht unit composition.
Losing ground out there.
So, more grenades going in and not really doing much. A lot of manpower, 700 manpower. And even at this point in the game, what's he building? Yay, a Sherman. Yay, finally a Sherman. So, almost 8 minutes after the tank depot finishes, we have the first unit being built out of the tank depot. And still no weapon support center. Against any sort of tier 2 play at all, you need a weapon support center 100% of the time. Could be using this house just for a little bit of cover. Decides not to, however. Always want to try to do anything that can give you a slight advantage. Every game of code, just like every game of any RTS, is won by decision making. You make fewer mistakes than your opponent and you lose the game. That's just kind of how an RTS game operates. Just kind of how it goes. Nebel's killing that howitzer. Going to be able to repair that, however. Sherman moving up. Going to do some decent damage. And might do a lot of damage just because the Wehrmacht player isn't really prepared for it. Or at least doesn't seem like he's very prepared for it. But he does have the Stug out. And he's probably going to have a Gren with the Shrek soon. However, he's definitely, or almost definitely, hey, there's the Gren with Shrek. And boom, there goes the Sherman. You know, another artillery barrage. Let's look at the pretty colors. Arty barrage doesn't really do much, as we see this new howitzer. Only 3 infantry kills, not too much on that front. Little harass on the left-hand side, speeding things up even more, hitting mines. Low health, gonna want to retreat, but at this point, it's just a very good position for the Wehrmacht player and a very terrible position for the American player. And at a point in the game such as this, you really need a good position for the American player in order to have any sort of hope of coming back into the game. More Howie barrages wasted on the med bunker. Not really doing much of anything. And let's take a look at the pretty little tactical map and see where health goes down to see where the Nebel is, right over here. There it is. Rangers running around. Vet 3 support units now. Vet 3! Voice crack. Vet 3 support units right now. And yeah. Hardy barrage. Once again, maybe on the med bunker. Actually, that's kind of funny. Almost takes up the gun on that. But a big push on the left-hand side. This is probably going to be the killing blow. Hopefully. Maybe not. Soulmessiah sticking in there. I will give him that. Very perseverant. Is that a word? I think that's a word. I should really know this. Perseverance. Showing a lot of perseverance. I'll go with that. In this game. Really should be trying to Howie the Nebels, however, instead of the med bunker. Of course, my opinion, but that's why you're watching me, to listen to my opinion. Yay! Because I'm narcissistic like that. But the game's almost over, guys. I really swear to you, the game's almost over. And you won't have to listen to me babbling on for endless hours. And ooh, that was a nice grenade. And this is a not so nice Hellcat in the sense that it's probably not going to do anything. But dum-de-dum-de-dum. Oh, boom. I guess he went defensive, everyone. I guess he went defensive. I wonder if he just went defensive to do that. If he did, that would be a pretty awesome thing. But yeah. Okay, actually, I'm just going to stop the game right here because it's pretty much over and I've ran out of things to talk about for the last 5 minutes. Thank you for watching. Check out my stream, justin.tv or twitch.tv/inversetv, Twitter, twitter.com/inversetv, of course on YouTube, youtube.com/inversegr. Check out game replays, Company of Heroes, all this stuff should be down around here on the right hand side. Anyways, thank you for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow. Let's just watch this first because that's really, really pretty. And what do you know, the game is over. Oh, yay. Come on. Okay, goodbye.